All right, everybody, welcome back to Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4, of course, is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Geoff Mosher is here for today's edition of Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast, and they are getting you ready for the Eagles and the Buccaneers. A lot of storylines in this one, Geoff. Let's get into it. What's going on, man?
How are you, Mike? What's going on?
Well, tomorrow night, football is already back. The Eagles on a short week. Do you think playing Tampa on a short week is actually helpful?
I guess because maybe, A, they're beat up right now. They got a lot of key injuries or key players who are hurt. And B, if you subscribe to the theory that Tom Brady being 44 probably doesn't recover the way he did when he was 24, then supposedly. Plus, you're coming off a win, so it's nice to get back out there. Jason Kelce has pointed that out many times. He likes he loves Thursday night. He likes getting right back out there and the rest on the body because you only do walkthrough practices throughout the week. So if you've got a bunch of veteran players who are healthy, like the Eagles are, I can see the benefits to it.
Yeah, they've won like 6 or 7 straight games on Thursday Night Football here. Now let's take a look at some of the storylines going into the game here. Number one, I guess the offensive line configuration. Nick Sirianni indicated that there's not going to be a lot of switches. Are you buying that? Do you think they're going to keep Mailata there, Dillard at the left tackle spot, Mailata at the right tackle spot, or do you think there will be a little bit of a change?
No, I wouldn't expect any changes because Andre Dillard is playing well at left tackle, well enough to stay there while there's some uncertainty at right tackle, and B, I don't think that he still is going to be an effective right tackle, whereas Jordan Mailata had played right tackle before and had been more effective in that role. So while it may not be the most ideal set of circumstances, it's still better to have Andre Dillard at left tackle, Jordan Mailata at right.
Yeah, and I know that nobody seems to know what's going on with Lane Johnson. Is there any, update on the possibility of him returning at any point this season, or are we starting to believe that this could be a long-term absence from the team? Do we know anything new around Johnson, outside of, what's going on, what's happening? That's not essentially what we're prying for. But
right.
The Eagles, are they starting to feel that this is a longer-term situation?
They're not giving that kind of impression that this is going to carry out for, weeks more or maybe even past this week. But they're also not giving a whole lot of details either. So I think that we will have a better answer for that next Monday, because there'll be several days off between Thursday, tonight or tomorrow's game, and then when they have to reconvene again for practice against who would it be? Vegas at that point? Las Vegas is their next. So that there's a little bit of distance there, some time for everybody involved to figure some things out. And I would imagine we'll have more clarity when either Monday or Wednesday of next week.
Yeah, I know that, the Goddard thing, too, is kind of interesting because we believe he's vaccinated, which means if he passes his 2 tests, he could possibly play tomorrow night. So, obviously, do you think that they are going to – I asked this question to Andrew yesterday. Do you think the fact that they have the 2 tight ends actually makes it more difficult for them? Like trying to figure out, does that kind of
absolutely
cloud the game plan because he's trying to figure out ways to get them both involved? Like, if they only had one, would it be less clunky?
Yes, I do believe that. I think if, Zach Ertz were not on the team and if it was just Dallas Goedert, that Dallas would probably be featured more in the offense. Obviously, when they're in situations where they have both on the field, which is not a lot, but they do a decent amount of 12 personnel. Dallas has to be the one who's in line and blocking because Zach is really just a pass-catching tight end. So I do think it muddles it up. I mean, I think it's not apples to apples, but it is similar to how you had Alshon Jeffrey on the team last year, making a certain amount of money, having a certain amount of veteran resume to him, and the team feeling like they needed to play him, even though they did not need to play him. And I think that's what you're seeing right now from an offense that lacks an identity. What Dallas brings is a physical element to the game. Catch the ball over the middle, turn upfield, run, break a tackle. red zone. You saw him make that touchdown catch that got wiped away 2 weeks ago. He ready to fight for the ball, hold on to it. And I don't think this offense has a physical receiving element to it right now. Devontae Smith's a nice wide receiver, and he's been doing well, but there isn't somebody who's making very difficult catches and making contact, yards after contact. And I think that would be a role that Dallas Goedert would have. And you've seen it when Goddard's on the field. When Zach was hurt, he's getting 7 or 8 targets a game. He's either the leading target receiver or the second leading guy. Now you look at it, and he's kind of lost in the sauce.
Yeah, I think he's averaging like 15 yards or 14 and a half yards per catch. He's one of the biggest play tight ends in the league. The problem is they can't get him the ball, and I think their targets are about equal, with Ertz actually, Moshe, having a little bit more of the actual targets and catches, even though the numbers are bigger for Goddard. So that kind of tells me they're trying to serve two masters, kind of like we've discussed with a lot of the things they've done with this team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes that's, whether you're talking about the field of play or the front office, I mean, there's a lot of masters being served, and I do think it's part of it. And I also think that part of the issue is that the offense right now lacks an identity. It's being called a very college-like offense from people who are smarter than me, people around the league who see the Eagles on tape. And, there's a lot of short stuff, RPOs, quick stuff, everything designed to, I guess, cater to Jalen Hurts' strengths, and not so much conventional offense stuff, which in my opinion doesn't mean Jalen Hurts can't do it. I just think that the coaching staff is trying a little bit too hard to try to replicate maybe like an Oklahoma type style offense around him, instead of saying, all right, Jalen, we're in the NFL now, got to play some NFL football. Let's see you do it. It's supposed to be an evaluation year.
I saw last night, and I wrote an article about this on 973ESPN.com, to which the comments you can only imagine, Geoff Mosher, to which Jeremy Fowler reported that, one team that could be interested in Marlon Mack would be Philadelphia. Now, he's a running back, and of course, the comments, well, they don't run the ball. Why would they be interested in a running back? Why the hell are they looking at a running back? They never run. Well, Mack was the running back in Indianapolis with Nick Sirianni. He had 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. And this kind of goes back to something we talked about on Monday. Maybe if he had a running back that he trusted more, he would utilize that more. So if you're hearing that, and I'm not saying you hearing, but if there's reports that they might be interested in a player like Mack, does that kind of indicate that they don't trust the running back and they don't trust their running game?
It's either that, or it's something about a guy, maybe having a comfort zone with your own players. We see coaches all the time. They want their own hand-picked players. We see Kenneth Gainwell on the field a lot, which has not been bad, by the way. He's been good when he's on the field, but it's just an observation that this is a guy who was picked by this regime.
Right.
So I can't find too many people who I trust that would tell me they think that Marlon Mack is a better running back than Miles Sanders, or gives you a more explosive dynamic. And people seem to label Miles as kind of a scat back, but he's not. He runs hard up the middle. I mean, he did last year especially. And I don't know why, if that's a case where he has not earned the trust of the coaching staff, I couldn't tell you what he has not done, because I know for a fact, I think we talked about it last time, that people felt Miles Sanders had a Pro Bowl level training camp. So whatever happened from the end of training camp till now, I mean, you look at the end of last week's game, right? And he runs out of bounds twice when you need to stay out of bounds. Those are bad decisions. But the ball was being taken out of his hands long before that ever happened. So I just don't understand what's going on personally.
Well, I kind of
see.
indicated, like him going out of bounds twice there is, a boneheaded decision. And are those the type of things that they're seeing, that of reasons why they don't trust him and why he doesn't get more opportunities in the heart of the game because of what we saw there, because they don't trust him? I don't know. I mean, that is a mystery to all of us here. But Doug Peterson didn't use Sanders all that much, and now the new staff's not using him, all that much either. You wonder if there's something there. So that's something to kind of look at. But this is a game, Moshe, where the running game, it's probably not the way to go if you want to beat Tampa Bay, correct?
Yeah, I know. For all the people who think that they're going to start running now, now you place Tampa Bay. I think they have one of the top 5 run defense, and they don't have a very good pass defense. So it just invites the idea of passing on them even more. However, people will tell you, if you want to beat the Bucs and you don't feel like you have the offensive firepower to outscore them, what you want to try to do is play a ball control style offense. That could be short passes and dink and dunk, but eventually it could also be running the ball. So I imagine, despite the fact that they are a successful run defense, you're going to have to try to think of ways to put the ball in the hands of your running backs and keep moving the chains and not give Tom Brady 7 or 8 possessions.
Yeah, I know that they have struggled against the pass, and obviously, you don't want to get into a shootout situation with them because they have so many weapons on the offensive side of the ball. And one problem for Philly, which, last week they got 3 interceptions. Well, Sam Darnold's not playing quarterback, number one. And number two, Jeff, the Panther offensive line is one of the weakest units in football. Conversely, Tampa Bay's offensive line is one of the best units in football. So you can't count on the same amount of pressure.
No, you can't. It's kind of weird how they've had to play the Chiefs, who have this very good offensive line, very good offense. Then they go to the Panthers, bad offensive line. Back to the Bucs now, very good offensive line. A couple of weeks ago they had Dallas. I wonder at what point do they get to play an offensive line that's like pretty good, not great, or not terrible either. But that's just the way the schedule has been for them. Honestly, not a lot of people expect them to beat Tampa Bay. I don't. But once you're out of this game, I feel like we're going to get a chance to really evaluate this team, this coaching staff, because there'll be a string of games in the next 5 or 6 weeks after where you'll feel that the Eagles have a better chance to win. You may not think they're favorites, but, Vegas is going through it right now with what they've got going on. The Lions aren't very good. Obviously, the Chargers will be favored. They're a very good team, but they're not necessarily unbeatable, I don't think either. And then you'll start to get into New Orleans. There'll be some games where you're like, okay.
Yeah, well,
okay,
guess what?
These are good measuring stick games.
But and we talked about this, or I did throughout the week, which was, you played Atlanta, you played San Francisco. Your defense was fine against those two teams. Now, would you hope and expect them to be more competitive in the game against Dallas and Kansas City? Yeah, sure, you hope that. But really, Tampa, I say the Chargers and that Dallas game is really the only games left where you're going to see a level of offense that is on the next level. Everybody else on the schedule is more Atlanta, San Francisco, Carolina, Vegas, Detroit, New Orleans. Like, you don't have a whole heck of a lot of high-powered offenses left there. So with that, how do we feel about, we talked about this yesterday, Moach. I'm doing who's in and who's out. I can't find the final 2 NFC playoff teams. I cannot find.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, isn't it? I mean, it's weird.
It's a very top-heavy league. You know who I ended up with? Minnesota and Carolina.
Oh boy, wow! Is it that bad? I haven't really stopped to think about it. I mean, you got Green Bay in the NFC North.
I got Dallas, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Arizona, and the Rams as a wild card.
Okay.
And after that, it's Washington, Philadelphia, Chicago, Minnesota, Carolina, New Orleans, Seattle, San Francisco. They're all the teams.
Yeah, see, ordinarily, right, Seattle you would have pegged for one of those spots, but now that they're going to be on Geno Smith for a couple of weeks, that does knock them down a few pegs. And the same thing with San Francisco. I thought they would be a better team, but once again, they're riddled with injuries. They're having to play Trey Lance now. We'll see, because that is a type of team I think that has enough talent to start to figure it out and get better as the season goes on. And part of me, Mike, I'm not trying to be stubborn because I was high on this team going in. I have to think that Washington is going to figure out its defensive issues because they've got talent. I don't know why they're not playing together or rushing the passer.
I agree with you on their defense, but their schedule coming up is absolutely brutal. I mean,
oh, man.
It is absolutely brutal for Washington and New York, by the way. But they've got the Chiefs, the Packers, the Chiefs at the Packers, at the Broncos, Tampa Bay, at the Panthers, Seattle, at the Raiders, Dallas, at Philly, at Dallas, Philly, at the Giants. I mean, they really have a brutal stretch of games that are coming up for Washington.
It does look bad, but their offense has been surprisingly pretty good, even with Taylor Heineke at the quarterback. And like I said, if that defense can just be sort of what it was last year, then you would think they have a much better chance in a lot of those toss-up or difficult games that you just mentioned. You would think.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, you definitely. I mean, so, again, going back to the original conversation, which was, with all the teams I just mentioned, is Philadelphia looking at this like, hey, we're right in this jumbled mess with all these teams? Like, do they feel like they have a little bit of a different outlook all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think and they will feel that way. And then it's going to come down to how many of your coin flip games, that I like to call them, can you win? Unfortunately, a couple of them are on the road, which is always tough. The Denver game's on the road. The Las Vegas game's on the road. I don't see the Lions as a coin flip game. I think the Eagles should probably be favored, but at the same time, I don't know how they're going to be looking in a week or two, right? Yeah. So, or after the Tampa and Detroit game, Tampa and Vegas games. So who knows? They could have injuries. They could be, and Detroit does play hard, but that's why I say it's unfortunate for the Eagles that game is on the road as well. So you have 3 games that you want to say the Eagles should have a fighting chance to win, but all 3 of them on the road, and we got to be realistic and say they're not going to win all 3 of those road games, and then that makes that home game against the Chargers a little bit difficult.
Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. You guys broke down some source from the tape. I want to get your thoughts on the way the Reagor-Watkins receiving split is working and how it might be evolving, and what are they seeing from Reagor?
This one has been tough to figure out because all the feedback I've gotten is that ever since that rocky kind of first 2 weeks of training camp and how he reported and everything, not ready to go and failing the conditioning test, that he's been better as far as the work ethic and doing what they want him to do. But when he's out there, it's so sporadic when he touches the ball, and there's no consistency to it. They're using him now in special teams, and that always feels like an excuse when you want to use someone on special teams to explain why they're not getting as many offensive snaps. So I think Quez Watkins had more offensive snaps. I don't think we know yet the identity of some of this. Like Quez Watkins, I know people say he should play more, but there are a lot of players in the league who specialize in the shot play, and they're not guys who run all the routes. They are shot play type guys. Michael Gallup is a shot play for Dallas. It's CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper mostly, but when you need that big play downfield and he's healthy, Gallup will give you that. John Brown has been that kind of a guy in the league. And I don't know that Quez Watkins is more than a shot play guy. But I don't know, because this offense does not seem to have that intermediary passing game. It's either screen, short, and go long, and really lacks that area where you would think both Jalen Reagor and Dallas Goedert would really flourish. And again, is that the play calling? Is that the quarterback? There's a whole lot of questions that need to be answered about that.
On defense this week, Darius Slay said, he moved around with DJ Moore. If there's a guy to pick to move around with this week, is it Brown? Is it Evans? Is it Godwin?
No, you're not moving around. You're not doing it. You're playing zone. They're going to play zone. I mean, I'd be stunned if they moved anybody around, because then you're asking for other matchups on the field that you probably want to avoid.
Well, and Fournette's been running the ball pretty well lately too. I mean, and he's a big, powerful back. I mean, so if you're going to run zone, or if you're going 2 safeties deep like you did against Kansas City, you might be in for an even longer day at the office.
Oh, I think we all know it's going to be a pretty long day at the offense, no matter what defensive posture you choose. It's because it is what it is.
Yeah, no Gronk this week either, by the way. He is out. Levante David is out for Tampa. Obviously he's a big playmaker for them. So this could be a similar type of game to the Kansas City game, Mosh. Can they get that stop? They played well defensively. Can they get a stop or 2? And maybe that's the difference in this game, different from the Kansas City game.
Yeah, I mean, look, the key. I say like there's a blueprint for it, but when you see Tom Brady lose, I mentioned this on the podcast. The recipe to beating Tom Brady is not the Eagles' recipe in the Super Bowl. That's very, very unlikely. It's more the Giants' recipe of getting your front 4 to just pressure him and make him throw the ball quickly and get him off his mark. He's not Aaron Rodgers from a scrambling standpoint. And so, to me, the way to make this thing work is just Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat, Derek Barnett. They have to be your guys. They have to bring it every single snap, and they got to treat this game like it is the Super Bowl, and get after Brady. And if they can do that, I think you give them a puncher's chance, right?
Sure.
If not,
hey, Atlanta had Tampa beaten in the fourth quarter, and then Matt Ryan threw 2 big picks in that game. Right. And we know what Philadelphia did to Atlanta, so matchups make fights. I don't know that this is a great matchup, though. I do want to ask you, Moshe, real quick. Jannard Avery, Davion Taylor, will they have bigger roles? Are we going to start to see more of those guys?
I think so. I think what Jonathan Gannon learned is he has to play a linebacker up on the line of scrimmage to give them more of a 5-man front. You saw some 3-4 looks, because when you play 5 guys at the line of scrimmage, that forces the offensive line to be single blocking, 5-on-5. And that means they can't put those big double teams on Fletch or Hargrave and drive those guys back and then, get off those double teams into the linebackers. When you're 5-on-5, that allows the linebackers to come right in through the gaps that are available unblocked and be better against the run. You saw them improve against the run there against Carolina, even though there were still some big run plays against them. Davion Taylor, he showed his athleticism. He's not – I don't know that he's a run-stopping linebacker. He's more an athletic guy who can go sideline to sideline and run with a few guys. So his coverage will be tested. But I worry about his inexperience against this kind of offense. This is not an erratic quarterback like Sam Darnold. It's not, like you said, not a bad offensive line. A very disciplined offense can zero in on a guy like that when he's on the field and just take advantage of, losing him in space and him not really having all that veteran moxie to know where to be at the right time all the time.
Geoff Mosher, the Inside the Birds podcast. Of course, you can get it in wherever you listen to your podcast. What's the arrangement for the pregame show with a Thursday night game?
Well, Greg Cosell can't be here for the Thursday night game, so we got an unbelievable replacement for him. Maybe, just as good of a tape breakdown guy. We're having Brian Baldinger on with us. It'll be myself, Adam Kaplan, Baldy, Jason Avant, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. on the Inside the Birds YouTube channel and other social media platforms.
All right, Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. Football at 4. Mosher, your pick for Eagles Bucs. What do you got?
I have the Bucs winning. I believe I picked 29-16 or something like that.
Wow. All right. The Eagles defense does play better. But the Eagles offense,
29 points, I guess that's better.
They gave up 40 against Kansas City and Dallas. I would put Tampa's offense more in that range than some of the other teams, right?
A little worried about the thumb. If Tom's got the thumb thing going on, so that's good for one fewer touchdown than you might think.
All right, check out the Inside the Birds pregame show tomorrow and the Inside the Birds podcast here. Geoff Mosher on Football at 4. All right, Mosher, thanks, man.
You got it. Take care.
And Football at 4 is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.